You ready for a generational gap? Do you remember Eye of the Tiger by Survivor from Rocky 3 or those stupid ass Starbucks commercials?
Ride! Ride, ride, ride!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to my review of Rocky 3 from 1982, trucking along through the Rocky series. And if you have not already seen, I have released full reviews of the first two Rocky films. And we're going to keep going all the way to Creed 3's release next week. And Rocky 3 is another really interesting chapter in this franchise to talk about, because just like with Creed 2, the reception is all over the place for this film. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is my dad's favorite Rocky film, and he has always maintained that. Where for the longest time, and maybe still, it's one of my least favorites. Critic reception from back in the day, from Siskel and Ebert and all that, it's all over the place. Some people loved it, thought that this was such a more enjoyable direction to go. Other people felt like Rocky was done at this point. I mean, this is one of those chapters in this franchise where so many different people get so many different things out of it. So with the continuing success of the Rocky Now franchise, of course the studios wanted to do a third one. Of course Stallone was absolutely game to do a third one. At the time, this was like his time to prove how insanely good physical shape he could get into. At the time, he got down to like 2.4% body fat, which was like a record for him. He was eating like 10 egg whites a day, and that's it. This was right around that era where Stallone was starting to get into the action scene, was starting to get into competition very directly with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was about who could get the bigger muscles, who could be more glistening on the poster, and who had the bigger box office. And Rocky 3 and even Rocky 4 to a certain degree fell very much into the traps of that era of Sylvester Stallone. And interestingly enough, too, it was almost an accident that they discovered Mr. T and gave him the role of Clubber Lang, which then became his breakout role to go on to things like the A-Team and all the other things that he was known to be iconic for in the 80s, because they wanted an actual boxer to fight him. They wanted to really up the ante in that way. They wanted like Joe Frazier or somebody to be the Clubber Lang person. But every boxer that they looked at for this role either had a little bit of a speech impediment or had a little bit high of a voice and didn't really have that intimidation factor that they were going for. And I believe it was the casting director, in the middle of all of this just agony trying to find a match of pure physical talent to acting talent, happened to see a little show where Mr. T had a guest spot on and said, yeah, that dude with the mohawk, what's his name?
He's just another fighter.
No, he ain't just another fighter. This guy is a wrecking machine, and he's hungry. Hell, you ain't been hungry since you won that belt.
So with a lean and chiseled Stallone, with a villain that can absolutely chew the scenery in Mr. T, Rocky 3 started this little 1-2 punch of Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 of the 80s era of Rocky films. But really quick before we dive into the good, bad, and the ugly of Rocky 3, no matter how many raw eggs you drink or how many marathons you run in tight 80s shorts, you are always left vulnerable to identity theft. So let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Nowadays, so much more of our lives are tied to online accounts and social media presences, making the ever-growing threat of cybersecurity and identity theft bigger than ever. In fact, identity theft is currently the fastest growing crime in the nation, with a new victim every 14 seconds. This is why I'm excited to partner today with Aura, which is an easy-to-use app that has every single tool that you will need to stay safe online. Identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, VPN, password management, and antivirus software. And while I'm sure many of you watching have one or maybe a couple of these, if you don't have all of them active at once, it's basically like locking up all of your doors while leaving your windows open at night. And let's be honest, it's much easier and much more appealing to have all of those services under one app with one bill than several. The day that I activated my Aura account, I got over 50 notifications of my email address showing up on the dark web, which is a section of the internet that hackers use to trade and sell your personal information. And with Aura, you'll also get near real-time notifications of credit inquiries in case somebody's trying to open a credit card or take out a loan using your information. So let Aura do the heavy lifting to keep you safe online by using my exclusive link and getting a 14-day free trial. And you'll be shocked how much they detect and protect you from in just those 14 days. So go to aura.com/Cody Leach or use this QR code to start your trial of Aura today. And thank you to Aura for sponsoring today's video. And starting off with the good, I do think this is a very fun, entertaining chapter in this franchise. For better or worse, these two 80s Rocky movies know what kind of movie they're trying to be, and I think that they execute that kind of movie. Whether or not you prefer that style of Rocky or you prefer more the street-level drama of the first two and some of the more recent Rocky films is completely up to your taste, and of course some of us like all of it. But for a movie that's not relying so much on the character work and the drama work and is just trying to be a really fun boxing movie about two guys beating the shit out of each other a couple different times, it achieves that. It's fun to watch. Probably the thing that I love this movie the most for is the bringing full circle of the relationship between Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, and Carl Weathers' performance added in with that. I love the placement and the usage of the character of Apollo Creed in this, to where he shows up as just a guest spectator for the first fight between Rocky and Clubber Lang, and then seeing like Rocky's just ego, his life, his self-purpose just kind of gets shattered. He steps in and offers to train him, offers to teach him everything that he knows, offers to mold that really just barbaric, just brawler style that he has with the very technical boxing and the footwork and all that stuff that Apollo Creed knows to make a totally new fighter. The fact that he comes in to do that and bonds with Rocky and starts this friendship and fills in that hole that the death of Mickey leaves, that's one of my favorite elements of this film. And to me, that is why, even though this movie's silly as shit, I still enjoy watching it when I go through a revisit, because that is such an integral piece to not only Rocky's story, but especially Creed's. And even that little subtle hint throughout the movie where he's like, I'm gonna do this, but you're gonna owe me a favor. Well, what favor? You'll find that after the fight. And then just before the fight, just remember Stallion, you owe me a favor. What favor? You'll find that after the fight. And then we find out after the fight, it's another third chance for Apollo Creed to prove that he is a better fighter than Rocky Balboa, but now two damn near equally matched fighters coming to blows in a private match as friends and not enemies. Just such a great note to end the movie on, and again, very important piece of the story for these two characters. I think that the entire boxing match, the little exhibition thing for charity that they do between Rocky Balboa and Thunder Lips, also known as Hulk Hogan, is absolutely hilarious. One of the most fun sequences in this entire franchise, and I almost enjoy that segment more than I do some of the Clubber Lang fights. I guess I like it when it leans fully into the silliness, and it's just a really fun time. Whenever you have this gigantic hulking man of Thunder Lips, that name in and of itself, first of all, is just fucking full of laughs, but when he's taking it full on like a real thing and is actually throwing Rocky out into the crowd and throwing him up against the ring, and Rocky's trying to get his gloves cut off in a panic so that he can come in, and it's such an entertaining way to kick off this new tone for where the Rocky franchise was going at the time. And again, some really solid character work with the character of Adrian and the performance of Talia Shire, and continuing to kind of expand on not only how important of a piece she is for who Rocky is, but her still continuing to blossom as a person, to where she is the missing piece yet again. She is the one person that can crack the armor that Rocky Balboa has around him and get to what the issue is about him being afraid, and giving him the motivation that he needs to finally see the eye of the tiger, to finally embrace his fear and become an even better fighter than he was before. This Rocky and Adrian, man, just one of the best executed couples, consistently good execution of movie history.
You gotta want to do it for the right reasons. Not for the guilt over Mickey, not for the people, not for the title, not for money or me, but for you.
Moving on to the mixed, we have got Clubber Lang and the performance by Mr. T. Now, don't get me wrong, there's something very entertaining about what Mr. T brings to this. There's something very entertaining about the very different vibe that Clubber Lang is to Apollo Creed in the first two films, even though there's still a bit of an arrogance that he shares with Apollo Creed, especially from the second film. It's just a lot meaner. It's a lot more menacing. It's a lot more, I dare to say, evil. To where before it was about the belt, it was about proving yourself, it was about proving things to yourself, and then Clubber Lang comes in and it just looks like a dude that actually wants to make people bleed.
What's your prediction for the fight then?
Prediction?
Yes, prediction.
Pain.
And that side of it I enjoy. That side of it I like the bit of raised stakes there. Even the way that they use the character of Mickey to kind of flesh that out a little bit more about this guy's gonna kill you and just knows it immediately and just shuts Rocky down like, you're not gonna do this fight because you're gonna get fucked up. But, however, Mr. T, for how great he is and for how iconic he is absolutely a product of his time. And so I think his performance as Clubber Lang exclusively makes Rocky III perhaps the most dated film in this entire franchise. Because there's so many things about even the older films, Rocky I and Rocky II, that I think still holds true to today and still feels very genuine. The performance of Mr. T, the style of Mr. T, and the way that he brings about the character of Clubber Lang, that is something that is literally a time capsule of that period. And as time goes on, it's not as entertaining or as intimidating or as fierce as it once was. It becomes really cartoonish. And that's the Mr. T shtick, right? You either love it or you don't, or you either think that that was awesome and always will be, or it starts to kind of show a little bit of rust on the shine a little bit there. But just the whole thing about, come on, sucker, yeah, I'm gonna beat you down. You tell me, everybody tell Rocky, I'm coming for Balboa. I'm coming for Balboa. You tell Balboa, I'm coming for Balboa. I ain't got no hate for Balboa, but he's a bum. I'm gonna show everybody he's a bum. There's gonna be pain. I've just never been able to fully get into it. It just always feels a little too cartoonish for my own personal tastes. And now moving on to the negatives. For somebody that thinks that the death of Apollo in Rocky IV is one of the most dramatic and integral dark moments to the character of Rocky and to the story of Rocky, I don't have the same feelings about the way that they utilize the death of Mickey, which at the time should have been even more dramatic of a shift for Rocky because of his long-lasting history with Mickey, and Mickey quite literally being the person that kind of molded Rocky into the guy that he was able to become. I think it's just the tone of the movie that doesn't allow me to really feel the death of Mickey the way that they want me to, because it's sandwiched with such silliness. You've got the ultra 80s Hollywoodized version of Rocky and of Stallone with the performance of Mr. T, and then this ultra dramatic segment where Mickey dies of a heart attack while Rocky's getting his ass beat in 2 rounds. It's just not executed so well for me. I love the character of Mickey. I love narratively what that death does to Rocky and opens up the void that Apollo Creed eventually fills. On paper, all that stuff is great, but within the film of Rocky III, it just feels out of place. That rather than coming off as this really important dramatic shift for the character, it's more like manipulative melodrama that's thrown in because it's a Rocky film, we gotta have something dramatic here, we can't go full tilt silliness, and it just doesn't work all that well for me. And it's a shame because Mickey's a character that is such a beloved character in this franchise by not only me, but fans everywhere, that I almost feel like he deserved a little bit better. I mean, dying on a table in this dirty ass little locker room because Mr. T was coming at Rocky and just kind of pushed him aside a little bit, like that's what did Mickey in. I also feel like the final fight in this one is the least exciting of the 3 fights thus far, to the point where, they're trying to have the whole thing about early knockouts. That's part of the strategy to get out Clubber Lang, is that he's used to using his Mike Tyson style power to just knock dudes' heads off in the first round or 2, and so he's never really had to go the length of a fight. And so the final fight is only 3 rounds because they turn that around, tire him out, and then knock his bitch ass out. Which I get, again, narratively it makes sense, but the first 2 movies, that long drawn out, just 2 dudes beating on each other and just beating each other to the last little breath that they have, so much more interesting, so much more exciting, more powerful by the actual victory. And so Rocky III, as much as I really want to see Rocky shut this dude up, I never really feel like that punch, no pun intended, by the victory. I never really feel like, hell yeah, he did it. I'm like, oh yeah, all right. Well, the bitch is down, move on to Rocky IV. But one of the things that really felt out of place to me in this film, and I'm curious I'm gonna feel the same way when I rewatch Rocky IV, because in Rocky II, when I rewatched the films this most recent time, it felt like they really dove into the simple-minded nature of the character, almost making him dumb. When you get to Rocky III, it feels more like Sylvester Stallone is playing Rocky as the 80s Sylvester Stallone persona than Rocky himself. He doesn't have quite the same dialect. He doesn't have quite the same way of speaking to people as far as like his simple-minded nature. The whole thing where he's allowing the crowd to come in and watching him work out, and he's, doing this and doing that and letting people kiss him on the cheek and all that. It's just, I don't know. There's something so glamorized about it that it doesn't quite feel like it's holding on to the essence of the character of Rocky to me. It feels more like the action star Sylvester Stallone is taking over versus the actual character of Rocky. To the point where when you get later on in the franchise, he harnesses that back in very much. Like Rocky V, Rocky Balboa especially, and of course on the Creed films, that's Rocky. That's everything we know Rocky to be. But Rocky III, and again, we'll see about Rocky IV when I watch it, it just doesn't quite feel like the same character. It feels more like Stallone. And my final negative, and this is absolutely 150% a nitpick for me, but goddamn, do we have to have Carl Weathers saying the actual phrase "Eye of the Tiger" like 97 times in this film? We get it. We get it. So overall, guys, very fun movie. It is a chapter in this franchise that I do enjoy, but it is one of my least favorites, honestly. I get those that grew up in the era that got to see this in the theaters or grew up having this be one of their favorites, why they would hold on to that nostalgia. For me, it is one of the chapters in this franchise that has aged the poorest, and while entertaining, doesn't completely hold on to the essence of the character of Rocky or what we come to the Rocky movies for. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, please click over here for all of my Rocky and Creed reviews. I'm also gonna put my most recent Rocky ranking up here for you to check out. Like and share this video, hit that subscribe button if you are not already so you don't miss the rest of this review series, as well as my thoughts on Creed 3 next week. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.